Hi, good morning. Welcome to Tea Time with Amie and Bev.
Good morning.
Hello, hello. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
We should do a podcast trying to use different accents.
Oh, God. I would have to go. I think all my accents might sound the same, so I'd have to go practice different stuff. Because I'd be like, I sounded like Australian, and it's like, no, you didn't.
It was a good try though.
Yeah.
How's it going? What's happening?
It's going good.
Yeah.
Life is going good.
Did you take the kids trick-or-treating or anything?
I didn't. Ariana brought up one of my granddaughter up so I could see her, and then I got pictures of Colton. They just kind of ran late. They end up running, I guess, a trunk or treat, giving away candy instead of going trunk or treating. So
yeah,
not so much fun probably for the kids, but.
So I saw a post on Facebook, cracked me up. It said, when I was a kid, right? Now, when I was actually a kid, and our parents said, well, when I was a kid, I was like, God, I'm never going to be saying these things because now here we are. When I was a kid. So that's what this Facebook post said. When I was a kid, you got one shot of Halloween, and that was it. I was like, is that not true or what? And we had to go walk for days to knock on doors and stuff, go to a stranger's house and knock on doors. So yeah. And now, I mean, it seems like it starts, these kids have different areas to go to like 2 days before Halloween and stuff. And I love that they have safe spaces for these kids to go to. So anyway, that post just cracked me up. You get one shot. Yeah. And it didn't matter what the weather was like either.
Oh, no. And when I went trick-or-treating, because I lived out in the Butler area, so the houses are not that close together, and it's like, it was a hit or a miss. You just got what you got, period. And then I think I don't know if my parents ever took me over in certain areas to go, but it's like with my kids, it's like, me and Jim took the kids every single year. I mean, it was every single year we took them. We would even have a truck tailgate down. I would be driving, and then he'd be with the kids, or he'd be driving and I'd be with the kids, and we'd jump off the tailgate and run up to the next house. That was how it got easier and easier, because it was hard on the parents too, because now we're walking around with our kids. But when we were little, it's like we just walked around. We just went trick-or-treating. It wasn't the way that it is now. There wasn't the worries and concerns that people have now.
Right.
So it was definitely different.
And we did it in groups. We did.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't. And it's like, I didn't even think about this stuff. And then my oldest is like, she's single. So she has Vivi by herself. And it's like, for her, I'm like, well, next year, if you want to go, walking around, I'll go with you that way. Because that's like, it never even crossed my mind until she said, I don't want to go by myself in some case someone tries to grab, and like you just said, it's always nice to go in a group, just a different setting. Yeah. But we're in a different time space reality more recently. And I feel like it's going to get better and better. So it's just, we got to have the patience for it and see what's going on around us. That's kind of coming up lately, but lately in the last couple of years, but there's just been stuff that's been forever. So it's like, we're just in a time where the stuff has to be exposed so that people can see and move on. So in a family sense, it's like no longer sweeping the shit under the carpet. You can no longer pretend like this stuff never happened. And that's what a lot of families used to do. Maybe our parents were younger than that, groups, how they, and probably even still, but it's just not that way anymore. We're not here to, people are becoming more and more vulnerable, stepping into that vulnerability. So.
Yeah. When I hear people say, oh yeah, I talked to my mom about everything, or I talked to our family's open about everything. I'm like, I have no idea what that was like, because we didn't talk about stuff.
Yeah.
And it was the private conversation. So you didn't see, like, from a child's perspective, You didn't see the adults having the conversations, being vulnerable with each other. You only, or I only saw them being strong and, right, putting on the facade like, we're good, we got this. But we didn't see all the struggle part.
Yeah.
So that was my perception of adults, that you had to be strong. You don't show your emotions or weakness, or, you get the shit done no matter what. And it was just like, okay. And that's the way I grew up. So I did it. Right. And it was tough. It was a struggle. It was just a lot of struggle, because then that instilled independence in me, that I had to do it and not asking for help, which we've been talking about for weeks. Not asking for help.
Well, because it's a progression. It's not something you just like all of a sudden you're doing it and it feels good. It's an uncomfortable. It's just a progression from, oh my God, even processing the possibility of asking somebody for help.
Right.
And then the whole fears of what if they say no and all this other stuff. And it's like, what if they say no? What if you put it out there? So who let's see how it shows up. And I guess I was raised, my mom was very open, so I could discuss anything I wanted to, but I didn't discuss because I didn't feel comfortable discussing anything. But when my kids got here, it's like I raised them, and it's like they freaking told me things. It's like I don't need to know everything, guys.
I know,
like,
there's things you're like,
take a time out. Yeah, like no.
boundary.
That's right. And now I still know everything. It's just.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it, because I feel like it's a good thing. And it's like I raised them even growing up, because when I was younger, I had done drugs and stuff. And it's like I told them, I never kept that stuff back. I always was upfront that these are my experiences. And then they grew up with, a family member that had addiction issues or, distraction issues. He had his own stuff, so they got to witness that too. So one of my daughters had a conversation with me recently about how one of the family members is and I get it, because we want to kind of keep our kids safe, but it's like not letting them know everything about this other person that was in their life, about the things they were doing, the choices that they were making. And this is why the things that they were, it's like they try to keep it all hush hush and quiet. So it's that quiet thing again. It's like, I guess, so maybe there's a fear that this child might go down that same path. And I don't think so. I think it's an opportunity. It's like I was talking to my daughters. It's like you guys could have made a decision and said, well, I'm going to go ahead and do it because I see what he's doing, and he's having a good time, but you guys saw it differently. So it's like we try to protect people around us so much and not let them live their lives. We keep them so sheltered, but we don't realize that we keep them so shut off. And just like with kids, it's like we teach them how to lie. We teach them how to lie by if they don't do something that makes us happy, they know it. So next time they're going to tell you what's going to make you happy, whether it's true or not. And it's just because that they just want to make you happy, even though they're not living their happy lives, because they're having to live in a hidden space of what they're doing or how they're handling life or whatever. It's like they learned it's not easy to talk about, so we just don't talk about it.
Or even making comments to adults. You have a child who only knows how to speak truth, and they say something to an adult like, wow, you're really fat. I mean, that's a child's perspective, right? They look at somebody thin or somebody compared to somebody, and then the parent is just mortified. You don't say things like that. Right. That goes right along with it, right? I'm teaching him to lie, or teaching him not to speak his truth, or teaching him to people please.
Yeah. And for them, their attitude, just that whole comment, you're fat, it doesn't mean there's no energy behind it. There's no maliciousness. Right. This is just what they see. And they could exactly. And it could be for them, fat's amazing. It doesn't matter. For them, it's something else. But when you're an adult, it's like, oh, we just don't say that. Like we don't say that stuff out loud or whatever. It's like, no. It's even with my Vivi. So she'll come over and she wants to touch everything. Well, both my grandbabies, actually, they want to go through everything. They see all these crystals laying around and, they want to touch things. And it's like, I'm teaching her to point at things which, we about the whole pointing thing, but I say, you don't have to touch it, but you can kind of point it out to me and to say, what's this, grandma? And then we'll kind of talk about it. And then you can ask me, well, can I pick it up or can I touch it? Or instead of just grabbing a hold of things, because she's very,
Curious.
very, very curious and very matter of fact, and she wants it her way, and that's the only way. And it's kind of funny actually. So, but no, I'm
Well,
playing with my pen.
she'll be standing in her power when she gets older.
She is. She is.
Good for
So I
her.
find it interesting. Yeah.
Teaching her how to be a boss.
With boundaries though, right? With healthy boundaries, but not like, no, don't do that because I'm the boss.
Right.
Don't do that because I mean, sometimes they want information. We don't want to kill their curiosity. That's my whole thing.
Yeah.
I want to expand on it. Like I want to find these little treasure boxes, put little treasures in it, buried all around, and then make a little map and then have the kids go finding stuff. Because they like to go dig, they like to dig in the yard. So they have a couple little shovels and stuff. So it's just like fun stuff. It's just like keeping that curiosity. Because I think that's important.
And that's what they're going to remember though with you.
Yeah.
It's not the high dollar expensive toys.
No.
It's going to be grandma had stuff in her yard. And we got to dig it up and we got to find treasure. That's going to be the stories that they hang on to, which is going to be amazing.
Yeah. And their creativity, right? So, which is something for us to practice on a daily too. But it's like they'll make up stories. Well, my friend that lives in Vegas, they have this pool and it's like really, it's his cousin, or you know what I mean? But he's like telling me this whole story and that he works at the airport and everything else. I'm like, oh, really? And he says, Grandma, we're just pretending. And I'm like, okay. So then I'm like, okay, so you're going to fly, I'm playing along with the whole thing because it helps me to be more creative as well. It's just being in that space and that creativity. And it's because when we're creating, because we do it all the time, we create things all the time, every day, good, bad, or indifferent. We create all the time. So it's like, it just gives you an idea, well, how this could be fun, like just remembering to be fun about it and playful about it and what you want to create. And not just from an adult perspective, but from like a childlike perspective, because it's more fun that way.
Yep. And
I'm going to fly in my unicorn,
Yeah. That's what I did some card readings last night on Facebook Live, and a couple cards talked about two different complete cards, two different people, and dream or dreamer or vision kept coming up, and playfulness and just words like that. And it was like, yeah, as adults, we lose that playfulness in our imagination, imagining that anything is possible and that we could have any kind of experience we wanted to have. Well, I mean, for myself, I was so damn angry earlier in my days that life was serious. Like everything was so serious and it had to be on point and the perfectionist, the whole spiel. And just completely losing touch with that imagination. I couldn't see beyond what was happening right in front of me. So I had to have a vision or to dream about anything. Being in survival mode, I just need to get through this moment with all that emotional baggage I had. So to even imagine having living on a nicer block or living in a nicer house or bigger house or having a new car, right? It's like all these things that we want to manifest or dream about. Like that wasn't in a vision for me or a dream. It was just right now. And it wasn't that I was present in my moment to survive. I was in my head like crazy, like all kinds of shit going on in my head. So I wasn't in the present moment, but I was in survival mode for the present moment. And so get down with them on the floor with those kids and play and use your imagination with them. They'll guide you. Those kids will guide you, right? They'll be like, oh, grandma, or whatever. And go out and play in the dirt with them and make those forts and hideouts, with the sheets and the blankets and all that stuff. So it's like, get back into that playfulness, because that's way more fun than having to be serious. Yeah. As adults, we do have to have moments in time where we, have to adult, but we don't have to do it 24/7.
No. And that's no fun anyways.
What just came to me was something I learned years ago. One way to get into that, and it also helps you diminish the perfectionist, is you get a coloring book and your crayons, and like, I'm right-handed, color with my left hand.
Oh, nice.
If it go out of the lines, I mean, that's allowing the creativity to flow and allowing the little girl in me to play. And you just color with your opposite hand, not your dominant hand. Now, if you're ambidextrous, I mean, maybe use your toes. I don't know.
Funny. No, that's a good idea. I like that.
So, there was another exercise where control and perfectionists, okay, is to get a pen and paper. And again, I'm right-handed, so I'd use my left hand and sign my name. And that also gets you very present in the moment, because you want it to look good. But it's about control and perfectionism when you use your non-dominant hand.
That's actually pretty awesome. I'm sure I feel like there's so much more benefit to it than just that too.
Oh, sure.
I think you're operating your brain differently than you normally would operate, and you're really having to be present. Sometimes, like even writing with my dominant hand, like writing that way, sometimes you get out of the presence of doing things and it starts looking sloppy, or it gets hurried, and it's not no longer is it you're paying attention, you're in the moment and just taking the time to enjoy what you're doing. You're trying to rush through it. It's kind of crazy.
Yep.
I know I'm jumping off this one a little bit because I know you teach yoga, and it's like, so I started doing yoga last week. I had done it a few times, and it's like, we don't realize. So, and I see things more on an energetic level, not just because my hips are tight or whatever, but it's like, even though we move through so much stuff, when we start doing yoga, you start recognizing there's so much more tightness. There's so much more guardedness. To me, that's like trapping all the energy. So for me, my hips and low back and my spine, neck, there's so many areas that are so bound up, and we can go to the fight or flight, but it's an energy thing. So it's from holding on to all this crap for all my lifetime. I'm 51 now. So holding on to all this shit. And it's like, I started noticing after a few times doing it, and not doing the same one. I would do yin yoga. I did the, my gosh, what is the other one? There's another yoga. There's so many different types of yoga, if I'll remember it and then say it. But it's like, I'm doing different things. It's like, I'm not doing just one thing. And it's like, afterwards, I just felt more open. It wasn't even just that my muscles were open. My energy felt more open. I was more fluid. There was more of a flow. There was more of a connection between me and my body. So it's such an awesome thing. So now I'm like really getting on people about it. Before I was always telling them, you need to go do yoga. Well, because that was I needed to go do yoga because I wasn't doing it. And I know I kept being told, I would get cards. It was showing up in my face. It's been doing it for years. And it's like, now I'm just taking the time to do that stuff. I'm a little bit this week, a little bit not so great on it, but it's like, I'll get back on track and do it. And it's like, it's not a big deal. I'm not going to beat myself up, but I know how it feels. And I haven't even allowed myself to even get into like beyond where I'm at right now. And I know it could be so much more than that.
Yeah.
Because they've even talked about yoga. So instead of going and doing the ayahuasca and all the DMTs and stuff, for, to open up your mind, to get you more connected, to clear up some of the stuff that you got going on in your body, yoga and meditation. So two main things that are so huge for you. Like, it's so huge. Now I'll let you go.
Go
I
for it.
stopped you.
Yeah, well, yoga is super beneficial. It was for me right up there. It was easier. It was a little easier for me to accept yoga more than I could accept meditation. But they're really very similar. Yoga means bring into unity. So you're uniting with yourself. You're bringing things into congruency, where we talk about the mind, body, and spirit. We're bringing that into congruency when we do yoga. And when you're doing the poses, just like sitting with meditation, to sit with yourself for a few moments, when you're doing yoga, it's important to be present with your body going through the movements. You got to be really like where you're placing your foot, or where your hands are, or how far are you twisting, and really tuning into the body, listening to it. Because if you do anything, if you're not in tune with your body and listening to it as you're moving through the yoga poses, you could seriously injure yourself. Honoring the body. And this is where I messed up when I did the teacher training. I didn't have a regular yoga practice. It was very sporadic, like once every 10 months, right? It was, and I just, you know what, I'm going to do this teacher training. So I did, but there were some seasoned yogis, which means they've been practicing, had a regular practice for a while. And I was trying to keep up with them. So I was in that story of, I need to prove I'm good enough to be here. And by doing that, I injured myself, and it took me like a year and a half to recover. So because I was more in my ego, proving myself, than I was listening to my body and honoring it with where it was at that time. The other thing is when you're doing your yoga poses and your stories start to come up. And so like my story was, I'm not good enough. So I need to prove myself good enough to be here. When you're doing the yoga, then when there's resistance, when somebody says, okay, we're going to do crow pose. Okay. Crow pose is a balancing pose, and it's on your hands, and your feet are not touching the floor. Okay. And your knees are resting on your, like by your elbows, your feet. So you're in this really crunched position. Anyway, and then there's the with that pose, the possibility like you're gonna teeter and fall on your face. I mean, so there's some fear there. And so when you're like, oh my God. And so the fear comes up. Okay, well, what's the fear? I'm gonna fall on my face and get judged and laughed at, right? My little girl's going to get judged. So it's things like that. When a lot of people, when they go into yoga and they're doing these poses, going into it thinking, I'm just doing yoga. That's the way a lot of people have when their mindset. I'm just going to go do yoga because it looks like it would be beneficial, or so many people's been recommending it, or I've been hearing it all over the place, whatever, right? So I'm just going to go do it. But when you really get into the tune of the unity, when you're going through your poses, it's actually doing some inner work. And another real simple example of that is like a tree pose. It's a balancing pose. You're standing and you take, you shift your weight to one leg and you place the opposite foot like lightly on your toes, or place it on your calf or up on your inner thigh, and balance like a tree. Well, in balancing poses, you draw that line down the center of your body, and there's the feminine and masculine energies. Right? So draw the line. Left side is feminine, right side is masculine. So I could because I was in my masculinity very strongly and very grounded in it because I needed it so much. I was very strong in my balancing pose when my weight was on the right side. Anytime I went to the left side on the feminine side, I couldn't stay in balance. I'd fall out like right now, just fall out of it, couldn't get the stance. And it was recognizing I'm not nurturing myself enough, or I need to give more attention to my feminine side, or right. And then there was times when I started bringing harmony to my masculine feminine, where my masculine side, I would fall out. And then what I would recognize is, oh, I'm being too much in my masculine energy. So yoga can bring up a lot of information from the inner dialogue if you give attention to it. If there's a struggle in a pose, what's the resistance? So it's really fascinating when you get more into it.
Really is. Gotcha. That is pretty cool.
And
I like it.
People just through almost the whole practice just crying because they're just releasing all this emotion that's been pent up and in the joints and in the muscles, just like, massage, right? You're moving that energy, manipulating the muscles and the, getting shit moving. And people just start crying. And I've had it happen with yoga. We're going through the poses and it's not a struggle cry, like I can't get, frustration. It's just a movement of energy that is allowing the release of pent up, stuck energy, emotional energy.
Somatic, what do they call this? Somatic emotional release? I can't remember exactly, but it was in massage too. It was even in reflexology. So just touching points on a foot could have reactions. Because I remember I was working on a client just playing with reflexology in school, and she had started like I was so paying attention to hitting the spots exactly in these movements you're supposed to do, and in the process you're supposed to do it, and the way she had it set up, that she's my client. She's like, Bev, look at me. And she was crying, and she says, I've been crying this whole time and I can't stop crying. Like it just keeps pouring out. And like you said, it's not like an emotional cry. It's not all these things. It's just a release. The body's releasing.
Yeah.
So it was a interesting thing. And of course I have it with clients, but I'm also talking like if we're trusting our intuition and in every situation, we just know when. Some clients I won't talk at all. Some clients I talk. Some clients will walk in my door and it's like immediately I start telling them things. And if I stopped and I'd be like, why the hell am I telling them this? But it's like but I've learned just to trust it. So as I'm telling them all this stuff, they start giving me confirmations basically that, yeah, this is what's going on, or, oh, gosh, how did you even know that was happening, or whatever. And it's like, because I'm doing the same thing that everybody can do. It's just listening. It's tapping into your intuition, paying attention and because that's why the information's just coming out. It seems like it's such nonsense, but it's like even the little things as far as watching a video or reading a book, it's like you read it. It's almost like you did some of those things specifically for the people that came into your life in the next few days or in the upcoming days. It's kind of interesting. I find it fascinating. Even like the Long Island medium, she would say that sometimes she'd feel like she had to do a craft or something like that. So she'd show up at a hobby shop. Well, it had nothing to do with the craft.
Mm-hmm.
It had everything to do with the people that she came in contact with and the conversations. That's what was the important thing. And that's the thing with all of us too. It's the conversations. And there's such growth and there's so much happening right now. There's such an evolution happening right now that it's freaking some people out pretty good, So it's for us that have an awareness, and we've been kind of looking forward to a lot of these shifts because we knew they were coming, that otherwise we wouldn't even have been in the process of doing our own reading. Everything we've been doing is not just for us, it's for a global, it's for everybody you have contact with, it's for us when we have these conversations, it's for whoever happens to see the video today, 10 years from now, whatever. There's a constant evolution happening right now. And it's for some people when they're, gosh, I can't even imagine, because this is something that I've wanted. I've been kind of pushing myself forward through a lot of this stuff, that for someone that doesn't want any of these things, how they could wake up one day or just walk from their car to their work and all of a sudden something just like totally happens to them, and they're like totally confused about their feelings and their emotions because everything is not what it was. Not, it's like you can't even operate the same as you did because none of it makes any sense. So it's like this, it's an awesome place to be in for us. I feel like because we can see and we can help them like, hey, it's not, it's all right. It isn't, you don't have to be afraid of this. Right now, what's happening to you, this is just part of a great awakening. It's part of a huge, massive shift that's happening globally. It's not to be afraid of, it's to welcome it because it's a big change. There's a big change coming.
But there, I wrote down a couple of things as you were talking. You said like people are freaking out when it comes because there's this huge energy shift going on because more people are coming more in tune with their spiritual sense and into intuitive, guidance. When you said freaking out, what immediately came to me was waking up.
Yes, exactly. That's
Like you
exactly it.
said freak out and I heard wake up and I was like, oh, I gotta write that down.
Yeah.
That we're waking up to who we are. And when you
Yes,
said everything is not what was, it never is, because what was is the stories in our head.
yes,
And we're always changing and evolving every single moment of every single day. Our body is the prime example of that, because we are not the infant that we were as a teenager, that we were in a young adult, nor at the age of 51, right? So it's always, we are, everything is not what was, is a true statement in this moment, in this moment, in this moment, in this moment, because it's always changing. And with that, like I said, was it, everything is not what was, but it is in our head because we're hanging on to it. And if we allowed ourselves to evolve with our life, with our experiences, with new chapters, new beginnings, things would be way more amazing. But instead, we're hanging on to the stories in our head and not allowing ourselves that space. And that's, we come back to fear and love. The fear is I'm going to hang on to all these stories because all that's keeping me safe, because I'm not going to allow myself to love again. I'm not going to allow myself to get that new job. I'm not going to allow myself to take that trip by myself. And love, or spirit, says, why not? What if it's amazing? What if you have the best time ever? What if you meet new people? What if you actually find that true love? What if your finances are like 10 or 100 times way better than it is right now? And when we move more into our spirit, we're waking up to that, because we've been asleep. We really have. We've been asleep, and we've been very, and I can speak this for myself, very lazy in my creative senses, in my dreaming, in my holding the vision, in my focus, in being meticulous comes to mind, but I don't know if that's the word, but in the way I'm thinking, right? How am I using my time and energy? Meticulous is not a word I would use, so that must be the word. Somebody needs to hear that.
it's interesting you say that someone needs to hear that because it's a lot of times that is the case. I was describing to someone something, they were talking about feng shui or something like that, and it's like it was interesting how information kind of flowed to me. It's like, I don't even know, and then I even said that to the person, I don't even know why I'm telling you this, because I don't even know if this is true, but this is what's coming through. It's like we were talking about, they were like, I don't even believe in feng shui, and I said, well, you don't have to believe in it. I said, but everything is energy, and the energy flows, and sometimes energy flows better in a different environment. I said, think about a waterfall. I said, everything is set up perfectly around that waterfall. Do I know that? I don't know, but there's like an energy thing. It's like perfectly, everything's in place, the rocks, the bushes, the flowers, everything is exactly like it's supposed to be for that area. Everything. It's like perfect. There's a perfect flow. So it was like, it was just interesting, but it's like, I was just telling her, just play with that information without even feeling like you have to do anything. Imagine, I said, pick a space that maybe isn't something that you really have like if you're holding on to not enough money or you're really struggling or something like that, then pick a place that doesn't feel like it's a big deal. Pick career, pick, communication. Find one of those corners, pick family. I said, because family doesn't mean that it's family by blood. It just means family, your soul family is going to come forward. I said, just go play with that space. I haven't seen her since to see if she's done these things, but that's really all it is about. Take your scientific mind that believes that you can't do it, it's not possible, and then go play at the room. What do you got to lose? It's just playing. It's just putting your creativity in the play. It's just proving to yourself how things can work. It's just another way of growing. You're witnessing it for yourself. It's not through somebody else's eyes. All these things, like we can do so many things, and you said that you were being lazy, but I just feel like everything is just distractions. We've been raised with distractions. I mean, I was raised, I had video games. If I wasn't outside playing, then I was inside playing video games at night, all night long. So I was constantly distracted. As a child, I don't think I ever gave myself time to really deal with any of the stuff that I had gone through in life. I didn't. Otherwise, I mean, I did it as I got older, but it wasn't like there was no processing it. I had too much hate and anger and sadness, and it's like everything you can think of in a freaking whirlwind walking into a space, because I could totally throw off the energy of every space. My family growing up, my God, I don't even know how they did it. My sister, like she needs a shirt that says I'm a survivor. Like I survived Hurricane Beverly or something, because it's like, it was me looking back at those time frames. It was a lot. Like it was a lot. And all the stuff that we're talking about that we're doing and stuff, it's been a progression. It's been, God, look how many, I mean, if I took a seat every time I was told to do yoga, I'd have a whole freaking forest right now. Like right now, I'm serious.
Yep.
That I just now am starting to do it. And so sometimes it just takes a while. So never give up on people. Love and honor them where they're at in their space, because we were in that space. I was in that space. And I still have people that are they're my friends, but most of the time I cut off people, just because it just kept them at a safe place for me. I didn't have to have anybody too close to me, because then then they had the probability of, I don't know, hurting me, I guess. I don't know, taking something away from me. So many things.
Yeah, I had this conversation yesterday with the lady, and I said she's going through a separation, which may possibly most likely will lead into a divorce. And she was telling me about the people she was talking to and how their conversations were going. And then out of all of it, she had one person who said, listen, I've been through this. I kind of know how you're feeling, but I want you to know you got this. One person who was like she felt was on her side, was on her team of, you can do this, because she was in her head about not seeing a way or a means of providing for her and her kids. So she's very dependent on the husband. And so, the mom's got her own stories from her divorce and her life experiences, telling her, meet me. And then the sister, meet me. It's just all these people telling her their divorce horror stories, what I call them. And I said, no, don't have these conversations with anybody else except the people are supporting you. The people that are, in your corner and helping you. Those are the people. Those are the people that you talk to.
Yeah.
I said, it's just like when you're pregnant, especially with your first child. Everybody tells you their pregnancy stories, and a lot of them are horrifying. Like,
yes,
good God, I don't want to have a kid now. I said, it's going to be the same with divorce, and every divorce is different. Every single one of them. I said, there's negotiations, there's the dynamics, there's so much involved that your story is not going to be the same as all these other people. But I said, that one person that says, you got this, you can do this, who says, call me if you need to talk, that's the person that's on your support team. That's the person you talk to. Surround yourself with people like that. And she was just like, wow, okay. I said, because that feels good. All these other stories, conversations, gonna keep you stuck.
Yeah.
So
And people think they're being helpful by telling them, well, God, you know, be careful because this happened. And it's like, and I feel the same way as you do. I agree with you when you're saying all that stuff, because for me, it's not, you don't want to, those aren't the seeds you want to plant. If it doesn't feel good, don't plant it.
yep.
Like I'm not gonna go plant this ugly bush out this huge weed that's not, you know what I mean? That it doesn't benefit or bring any beauty to the landscape or anything like that. And that's kind of like what you're planting. Just because that was your experience, and it's like if it was your experience, what was going on in your life at that time? Where was your focus at? Were you being a victim? What I mean, there's so much. God, there's so much more to. I have a hard time just telling people to get divorced anymore. It's like, take some time for yourself. Like,
Yep.
take a trip. Take 6 weeks, take 6 months, whatever it takes. Go do you. When because you got to figure it out on your own. We have a tendency to look at for people's advice on things, but it's like it doesn't matter what advice somebody else gives you, because whatever that they're coming from their own perspectives, their own pain, their own trauma, their own whatever their experiences were, and it's never going to match up with you. And then if you make that decision based on what you're being told, it's not going to feel right. It really always has to come from yourself. We always know, but it's like one of the messages I got from Jim, from a psychic reading I was doing for my pets, was like, I didn't know that you needed more time for yourself. You just needed more time for yourself. And it's like, at the time, I don't know what that would have meant for me. I do now. I understand it. I understand it's like a recalibration. It's catching your breath. It's being by yourself and not being someone else in someone else's energy, or what you think their expectations are of you. Because that's how a lot of the things, we've got such stories made up in our freaking head. And I did. Will I tell you I regret? I would probably say that there's some things I do regret, but I kind of go back and see how would I do it differently. Um, because it's not because I'm punishing myself, but it's because there's other ways, and it can feel better than it did. And I know that I did the best that I could at that time. And the only way that we can feel any different about a situation is because we've received different information. We've received different tools. We received maybe love from another, so you could hold space for yourself. I mean, there's just so much different things that happen, and it's like, it's really, I don't, I mean, unless it's like an abusive relationship, it's like, really, you have to take some inventory of yourself. It's so easy to blame somebody else because that's the way it's always been since childhood. For a lot of people, it was someone else's, or he's picking on me, he took my toy, she did this, it was always somebody else's thing, their fault. But it's like, it's not somebody else's fault, and there's a reason why it's showing up. And it's like, man, this man or woman that's shown up in your life they're a courageous person to be in your life, because you haven't moved, you haven't evolved past so many different things. Because I hadn't, and I still am. I still have my own shit that I deal with on, not as often, and I'm aware of it, and I'm got it pops things pop up in it, and instead of me reacting, because before I would fucking react on everybody, and I caught myself recently in a situation how I felt like something was being, why was I being punished, and I wanted to lash out, and I would that lashing out would have hurt those people around me, not the people, not it was just a child reaction. It was my ego reaction. It was the child side of myself reacting from that childhood trauma, how I would have reacted when I was 4 or 5 or 8. It was being in that space, but it's like, there's so much. I can't I can't stress enough that it's that quit putting blame on everybody else. Because I was this freaking strong person, independent, and all this other bullshit that I was telling myself, because it wasn't all true. It wasn't, because on the inside I wasn't. I was hurting just like somebody else would be hurting, that you could actually see that they were hurting. I just kept it. And it's like, but I was hurting myself. So it's like, it's so, Divorce is really a rough situation. It really is. And then also knowing that a lot of times we come together, and sometimes that's how you kind of know it's time to go your separate way too. So I'm not going to say that divorce is like the worst thing, because that's not. But also knowing that you have this opportunity to grow from this person, but a lot of times we came together, those two people came together from their childhood traumas. That's where they met, because they were both able to be in that child trauma. There was something the other one was helping the person to see. And I don't know, in all relationships, if you can resolve a lot of that stuff by acknowledging it. Because I think if you're in a relationship, if you're in a loving relationship, you're going to allow your partner to have their space and their growth and their stuff, and then be able to talk to them like I've seen other couples talk to each other, like, this is the story you're telling yourself right now, or is this the story you're telling yourself, or what is the story you're telling yourself? It's just having different conversations to kind of move past this stuff, because it's not just to cut off the other person from your life, because they were there for a reason. What
Right.
can you learn from it? And that's something you said, or I mean, you told me this a long time ago. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Why is that showing up in my experience? It's all I gotta say is I've been taking inventory on myself, and it's some of it seems like that's the stuff that hurts, right? You feel like it hurts. That feels like the struggle and stuff. And because they talk about this awakening and how it's all, rainbows and Skittles and, all the good stuff, eating cotton candy and sleeping all day long, whatever your fantasy
Okay.
might be. But it's not any of those things. It's because it's just like being aware of you, because you've been ignoring you. I had been ignoring me forever, and it was always somebody else. I was kind of an asshole, actually. So I can say that I'm now an Assholes Anonymous, but not so anonymous. No,
We meet every Tuesday morning for
that's right.
tea time.
That's right. That's right. Because these are my experiences. This is how I'm growing past it. And I don't think that you have to go through it with someone, a loved one or a spouse or somebody dying for you to have to do it. I just don't. It happens because that's how we grow. A lot of us grow. And I was such a stubborn shit that was probably the only way I was going to grow. Honestly, that was probably like, you're going to be a Taurus when you come into this lifeline, and you're going to be very stubborn, which I was early on, but it's
Yeah.
just funny.
Well, when you're talking about the problems and struggles and all that, that we show up in the moment in how we know how to show up in the moment with the information and knowledge and wisdom that we have in the moment. And then
Mhm.
the way we saw life 10, 20, 30 years ago is different than we see it now. So now we can look back on our life and go, okay, well, yeah, now, because I'm more wise, I love that. I can look back and go, okay, yeah, I see how I could have done things differently now. But then I didn't have the information I have now, right? So I recently, from my mentor, she brought to our attention. Now, think about this. When you get into a situation where you have to make a choice, okay? Typically, and I'm going to speak from the space I was in 20 years ago, that we get so in our head that we put the blinders on and we can only see a couple options, couple solutions to our problem.
Mhm.
But even then we take that and we what if it to death on the fear avenue, right? Well, what if that doesn't work out? What if this, and what if that, and we get all balled up about it. So it doesn't matter which choice we take, we're gonna freaking look at it from fear. And that's the way I did. So my mentor recently, she's like, okay, so she had just read somewhere that with every problem, situation, experience where you have to make a decision, that there are an average of 7 choices or 7 solutions. 7. And when you're in the fear, in the ego side of in like being an independent person, trying to figure out things, how I'm going to do it and figure it out. One or two choices, two maybe choices were available, right? And neither one of them looked that great. Both of them looked very hard, very hard choices. And she's telling me there's 7. So now, it's like you look back and you're like, oh, wow, yeah. Look at all these different ways I could have handled this. And so now I have more wisdom. So when something comes up, I'm like, okay, well, there's at least 7 solutions here. How many can I come up with? And which one feels the best, right? So now I'm going back internally and asking which one feels the best. And what if the one I pick is amazing? What if it's the most amazing experience ever? And it just works out so easily, right? So the whole internal dialogue and the way I'm perceiving things is on a much broader perspective than 20 years ago when I could only see right here.
And you kind of know what feels good, because some of those decisions don't feel good. And and especially when you're in that space with the blinders on, then you're not recognizing what's going on here. You know what I mean? You're forcing yourself to do something and you're not ready. You're not even probably ready to look at the situation just yet, not from that space, until you can see those 7 solutions, and that those 7 solutions feel better. They feel different. They don't feel so uncomfortable or ugly, or I don't know. There's just so many things that it just feels like, well, I got to do this. If you're going out with that kind of an attitude, then it's like, you kind of know that's probably not the place you want to come from, because later on it's not going to feel good. It's not, because at some point it is going to come back to you where you see the things, how you behaved, how you acted, how that could have affected somebody else, how it was perceived by somebody else, just like how it felt and everything like that. There's just such a, when I was younger, I wouldn't have processed any of that information. Now that I'm wiser, I take the time, and it's not because I'm older or anything like that. It's just because I've been able to look at things and grow and see where I was a contributor to this in a lot of ways. How was I worsening the situation? How was I making a better situation? It's like there's so much stuff, and it's like, by how it feels. It's pretty simple. If you're walking around with a chip on your shoulder, because I did, then you're not acting from a neutral space. You're not acting from a loving space. I was acting from the space like the world owed me something and I deserved it. But I didn't think that I deserved it. It's so questionable, but it was definitely a different space. So I honor where I'm at now, because it's taken me this long. It doesn't have to take anybody that long. It really doesn't. And really, it was a thing of, I'm tired of feeling like this. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't like feeling like shit. It's like, even like the drinking or any of the stuff, I don't like feeling like shit. I don't. And it came with drinking. It came with my attitude. It came with blowing up about stuff. It came with a lot of things. And then we can sit and tell ourselves all kinds of stories to justify why this was the right thing to do. Bullshit. If I had to spend time to justify in my head that this was the right thing to do, then it was the wrong thing to do. But I recognize that now. I was not capable of recognizing that before, because that's what I grew up with. Those were my tools that I had then. I've cleaned out my tool shed.
Yeah, made some space for new tools.
That's right.
And that was the guidance that I was sharing with this young lady about her marriage was take the steps, because right now she's just having conversations with friends and family, right?
Yes.
And like you said, they feel like they're helping by sharing their stories, when in fact it's really causing more clouded thinking for her, because now she's just like, oh my God. I said, no, if there's at least 7 solutions, 7 choices, you need to start gathering information and facts. So talk to an attorney and just ask them, get some counsel, and just so you can ask your questions by somebody who has answers, that's gonna offer you a direction. talk to, because she's going to school too, and talk to your school advisor, counselor, to find out what are your options for means of continuing your education and providing for your family. Because there's, grants and scholarships and all this stuff out there available. And so it was like, get out of the stories and let's get some facts, because the facts are going to help guide you in making your decision. And then what the story of that is she too is very independent, quote unquote, and needs to figure it out on her own, needs to do it on her own without help. Right. And I was just like, how much easier life would be if you had help? Just saying, it's so much better when we ask for help. I said, if I didn't have help with getting food in my kitchen, I would have to go out and grow my own garden. I got to churn my own butter. I got to make my own bread. But instead, because all these people bring stuff to a grocery store and I can just go there and get it, that's a lot of help. And I appreciate all of it. The truck drivers, the warehouses, the farmers, like, I got a lot of help to get this stuff into my kitchen. So all this help is out there for us to use.
Yes.
And so it's that, keeping the blinders on and that independent personality and the perfectionist and, I need to prove I'm good enough and figure this out on my own. It's just, again, we're allowing what was to stay active in our thinking.
Yep. And it's not that they're good or bad. They're not good or bad. I was not good or bad. I was just going through my life experience. It was my life path. And that's why we've talked about loving and honoring the person no matter where they're at in their path. Because it's like that I can't go live life for somebody else and then have them be like, oh, okay, I get it. That's not how it works. They have to have those experiences, and I had to have those experiences too. That's just the way it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's why we're all here. That's why we are here. We're here to let you know that you are loved. It doesn't, your decisions that you've made before, it's not the same anymore. It doesn't have to be that way. But regardless of whatever decision you make, it's knowing that you're loved anyways. You're loved unconditionally. And that's really that's really important.
That's waking up, right?
It is.
Waking up.
There's no judgment in it. And that's where people like us, and there's lots of us out there, that's the space we're in. I don't judge my clients. When they tell me the things they tell me, I don't judge them.
Right.
I don't judge them.
Yep. And I did some card readings at a Halloween party this past Saturday. And, it's a party. It's to be fun. And so keeping a card reading lighthearted and upbeat, that was real easy for me to do and still offer guidance to people, without having to go into a deep dive. Of course, I said, there's my business card. Be sure to take it with you and call me. Said it with a smile and not heaviness. But just connecting with people and recognizing, like, every single person, similar story in their head. I'm not good enough. I want to be loved and accepted. I'm still proving myself good enough. I'm working my ass off. I'm not taking time for myself. I'm ignoring, my being, because I'm out here busy proving I'm good enough. Every single one of them. And it was like, if anything, it was confirmation for myself. Nurture yourself, love yourself, relax, have fun, play. Because there were several self-employed people who are, it takes a lot of time and energy. And it's in all masculine energy and not taking the time in their feminine energy to play and be creative and enjoy the process, right? And love themselves through it. So, I mean, that just goes right along with what we've been talking about, that we bringing harmony to both sides, our masculine and feminine, is very vital in our day-to-day practice. And I mean, yoga, that's feminine energy because that's fluidity. That's bringing fluidness to the body, bringing unity into your mind, body, spirit, and allowing the masculine for strength when you're in your yoga poses and the feminine for that fluidity. And so it brings harmony to those both sides, and listening to the body as you do it.
That's awesome.
Isn't that beautiful?
It is. I like
I'm
it.
so smart sometimes.
Yes, you are.
All right, my friends, we appreciate your time and energy for being here and hanging out with us and listening. And we'd love to hear from you. So if you have any questions or comments, please post them and we will respond. You can connect with us through email. So amieandbev@gmail.com. And then this podcast is available on several platforms. It's here on Spreaker, Spotify, our iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Podcast Addict, and YouTube. And YouTube's my favorite because I like to see people. I like to see their expressions, and it just adds more to the conversation. So we're also there. Do you have any last words for this week?
The thing that comes forward is listen to some good, happy music, like uplift, raise your vibration. That's the week plan. Just keep focusing on how do I raise my vibration, and then doing whatever you're guided to do.
Wake up.
That's right. Well, you're waking up, whether you like it or not. You're waking up.
And the more light workers there are on the planet, we're going to get you. Don't you worry about it. We're going to get you.
That's right. That's right.
We're coming for you. I see you. All right, my friends, have an amazing week, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.